I am Megan, 29 years old, a freelance writer from Chicago. 3 years back at 26, I was grinding to build my writing portfolio when my dad cornered me about a real estate hiccup. "Just a small hurdle," he said, pushing papers my way. "Sign as co-guarantor for $35,000, a formality to seal the deal. You're my only daughter. This makes you part of the family legacy." Hungry for that rare approval, I signed without a second thought, believing it was my ticket to matter. But on my wedding day, they ditched me for a Florida getaway with my brother. I stood alone, scanning the crowd for faces that never showed. Then my phone lit up with Mom's group chat message: "Those beggars don't deserve to invite us." Relatives' likes flooded, in each one a jab to the gut. I locked my screen, done with them for good. A week later, 35 voicemails from Mom begged for help with that same $35,000 debt. My reply, one line: "Who's the beggar now?" That signature I gave them years ago became the spark to flip their world upside down. Drop your city in the comments and hit subscribe if you've ever had to fight for your worth in a family that didn't see it. That betrayal had roots in my childhood. Growing up in a Chicago suburb, our two-story house with its pristine lawn screamed success to outsiders. Inside, a rigid hierarchy ruled. My parents, Andrew Thompson, a real estate broker, and Michelle Thompson, a university professor, obsessed over status and legacy. Below them sat my younger brother, Nicholas Thompson, 6 years my junior, their golden child who could do no wrong. Then there was me, the invisible daughter, always scrambling for scraps of their attention. From my earliest memories, the pattern was clear. When Nicholas brought home straight A's, his report card was taped to the fridge for months, celebrated with dinners at fancy restaurants. My identical grades earned a curt nod from Mom, followed by, "That's just the baseline, Megan." At 12, I won a citywide essay contest, my first taste of writing as a way to capture the world. Dad barely glanced at the certificate, muttering about how writing wasn't a career. Meanwhile, Nicholas's science fair trophy got a custom shelf in the living room. The favoritism wasn't subtle. I overheard Mom at a neighborhood barbecue telling her friend, "Megan just fills the daughter quota, Nicholas is our real hope." That stung, but it wasn't new. Every achievement I brought home was met with excuses to dismiss it. My high school valedictorian speech, overshadowed by Nicholas's acceptance to an elite pre-law program complete with a catered party for their colleagues. "He's building a future," Dad said, as if my dreams were just childish hobbies. My passion for writing sparked in sophomore year. My English teacher, Mrs. Carter, gave me a journal for a class project, and I filled it with stories that made sense of my world. I'd stay up late typing under the glow of my desk lamp, lost in crafting narratives. When I told my parents I wanted to study creative writing in college, they shut it down. "We're not funding 4 years of scribbling," Dad barked across the dinner table. Mom suggested business as a practical major, something to fall back on. I negotiated a compromise, a double major in business and creative writing at a state university, with a partial scholarship. They'd cover the rest only if I kept a 3.5 GPA. I threw myself into it, balancing coursework with weekend freelance gigs, blog posts, local magazine articles, anything to build my portfolio. My roommate Sarah caught me editing at 2 a.m. once and said, "Megan, you're killing yourself to prove something they'll never see." She was right, but I couldn't stop. Every rejection fueled me. In my junior year, a short story I wrote won a regional literary award, landing me a feature in a local paper. I mailed the clipping to my parents, heart pounding with hope. Mom's call that night crushed it. "It's cute, Megan, but did you hear Nicholas got into law school early? We sent you the announcement." I'd seen it, even sent him a card. They didn't mention my win to him or acknowledge it beyond that call. By senior year, I was juggling client deadlines and exams, determined to carve my own path. My parents' house, with its walls plastered with Nicholas's accolades, felt like a museum to someone else's life. I stopped expecting their praise, but a small part of me still craved it. That hunger drove me, even as it broke me, setting the stage for the choices I'd make years later. Those childhood slights pushed me to carve my own path. After college, I took a marketing job to appease my parents, but poured every spare hour into freelance writing. For 3 years, I lived in a cramped Chicago apartment with two roommates, saving every dollar to ditch the corporate grind. My gigs grew from small blogs to features in national magazines specializing in raw, emotional stories that resonated with readers. By 27, I'd quit my day job, hired two assistant writers, and bought a modest condo downtown. My portfolio website gleamed with client testimonials, and a national writing award sat on my shelf, proof I was making it. Yet my parents never mentioned it. At family dinners, Mom would gush about Nicholas's law school milestones while introducing me as just figuring things out, as if I were still a lost teenager. I met Daniel at a local writers' conference where he was presenting a coding workshop for creatives. His easy laugh and knack for calming a nervous speaker caught my eye. Over coffee after his session, he talked about his programming job with a spark I recognized: passion for building something meaningful, not chasing status. We clicked instantly, swapping stories about our work late into the night. Daniel saw potential in everyone, never boxing people into rigid paths, a stark contrast to my parents' worldview. 6 months later, I brought him to meet my family at their pristine suburban home. Dad barely looked up from his phone, offering a limp handshake. Mom raised an eyebrow and asked, "So Daniel, what do you earn as a coder?" Her tone dripped with judgment, implying he'd never measure up. On the drive back, Daniel squeezed my hand. "They don't get to decide your worth or mine," he said. I explained their obsession with high-status careers: lawyers, doctors, nothing less. "Their loss," he replied, his voice steady. That night, Dad pulled me aside. "Megan, when you really make it, I'll be proud to call you my daughter," he said, his eyes glinting with a promise that felt like a lifeline. I clung to that, pushing harder at work, thinking success would finally earn their respect. Daniel, though, saw through it. "You don't need their approval to shine," he told me one evening over takeout. His belief in me felt like a new kind of anchor. A year into dating, on a quiet hike by a Lake Michigan trail, Daniel stopped under a canopy of oaks. He pulled out a simple silver ring, his hands steady despite the chilly wind. "Megan, I want to build a life with you. Your dreams? My dreams, all of it together," he said. I said yes, my voice catching, thrilled to prove I'd built something worth celebrating. I called my parents the next day, brimming with excitement. Mom answered, distracted by papers shuffling in the background. "Engaged." "Well, that's nice," she said, her voice flat. Dad cut in, his tone sharp. "What does Daniel make anyway? Enough to support a family?" The question landed like a slap, a red flag waving in my face. I mumbled something about figuring out details and hung up. My joy dimmed but not gone. I dialed back contact after that short call's holiday visits only. Daniel and I planned a small wedding focused on what mattered to us. I still hoped foolishly that my success in this milestone might shift their view. Dad's promise echoed in my head, but that question about Daniel's income gnawed at me, a hint their approval would always come with strings. With Daniel by my side, I planned our wedding, still hoping for a shift. We chose a small Chicago park venue, intimate with 70 guests, keeping it simple to reflect us. A local caterer handled our favorite dishes, pulled pork sliders, mac and cheese, while a florist friend arranged wildflowers in mason jars. Daniel's sister, a graphic designer, crafted cream-colored invitations with pressed petals, which we stuffed over wine-soaked weekends. My photographer pal offered a discount to capture the day. The budget was tight, but every choice felt authentic, like the stories I wrote for clients. I called my parents first, with the news voice bright, despite their lukewarm reaction to our engagement. Mom picked up mid-conversation with someone else. "June 12th, a park ceremony," I said, pushing through her distracted hums. "We'd love for you to be there." She sighed. "June's packed, Megan. Nicholas has a big case, and the kids have recitals." I pressed, "It's 6 months out, can you make it work?" She mumbled about sending details and hung up. Invitations went out in January each, with a handwritten note begging them to show. Weeks passed, no RSVP. In March, I spotted a group chat mention about a Florida trip planned for my wedding weekend. I called Mom, my stomach tight. "Are you skipping my wedding for a vacation?" I asked. She didn't flinch. "Nicholas's schedule is tight, Megan. His work comes first." Dad chimed in. "It's not personal, just priorities." I left their house, hands shaking, their words echoing like a verdict. June 12th arrived, the park bathed in golden light. Aunt Danielle and Uncle Brandon drove from Milwaukee to stand by me, their hugs warm where my parents should have been. Daniel's mom lent me her grandmother's pearl necklace, a quiet gesture that steadied me. My makeup stayed soft, no heavy glam, letting me move freely. The ceremony was perfect. Daniel's vows drew laughs and tears, mine quieter but just as deep. Friends and chosen family cheered as we kissed, filling the void left by empty chairs. Mid-reception, I checked my phone, a habit I couldn't shake. A new group chat message from Mom glared back. "Those beggars don't deserve to invite us." Likes from Nicholas, a cousin, even Aunt Danielle, before she retracted hers, hit like punches. The words burned, their cruelty sharper than any absence. I screenshot the message, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just a slight, it was a line drawn. I whispered to Daniel, showing him the screen. He nodded, his jaw tight. "They don't get to define us," he said. I saved the screenshot, already planning how I'd use it. Their betrayal wasn't my ending, it was their unraveling. That screenshot stayed on my phone, a quiet fuse waiting to ignite. Our Quebec honeymoon was a blur of laughter and crisp air. No phones, just Daniel and me exploring cobblestone streets. Back in Chicago, I dove into editing client articles while Daniel prepped his coding projects. 1 week after the wedding, my phone started buzzing nonstop, 35 missed calls from Mom, voicemails piling up. I ignored them, at first assuming another lecture about my small-time life, but curiosity won. The first message was curt. "Megan, call me now. It's urgent." The next, more frantic. "The bank's coming after us for $35,000. You need to help." By the last, her voice cracked. "We could lose everything if you don't step up." I sat frozen, the number echoing, $35,000, the same debt I'd co-signed years ago. Daniel leaned over my shoulder, listening as I replayed the messages. "What's this about?" he asked, brow furrowed. I didn't know yet, but my gut churned. That night, unable to sleep, I opened Instagram. Mom's profile, rarely checked, was a gut punch. Photos from their Florida trip flooded her feed, time-stamped across my wedding weekend. There they were, Mom, Dad, Nicholas, his wife, their kids, grinning on a yacht, clinking cocktails at a beachfront restaurant captioned, "Family first, always." The post screamed money, the kind that doesn't just appear. I pulled up my banking app, heart pounding, and did the math. The yacht rental, the restaurant, the resort they flaunted, rough estimates matched the $35,000 debt. A calculator moment hit, their luxury getaway cost exactly what they now begged me to cover. I called Mom the next morning, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling inside. "You're asking me to bail you out of that debt I signed for," I said. She didn't pause. "Yes, Megan, it's a family emergency. The bank will sue us both if you don't pay up." I pressed harder. "Why did payments stop right before your Florida trip?" Silence, then a dodge. "It's complicated. You wouldn't understand." I pushed further, demanding answers. "Did you spend my college fund on that trip?" Her pause was too long, her voice tight. "We didn't spend it on the trip," she said finally. "We used it years ago for Nicholas's law school. He needed it more." The words landed like a slap, tearing away the last shred of their facade. My college fund, the one they'd promised was safe, had been funneled to their golden child while I scraped by on scholarships and side gigs. The Florida trip wasn't just a snub, it was a flex paid for with years of their lies. I hung up my hands, shaking, and turned to Daniel. They didn't just skip our wedding, I said, voice low. They spent my future to play perfect family. He pulled me close, his silence louder than words. Their lies about my college fund lit a fire I couldn't ignore. The next morning, I called Lauren, my best friend since college, who'd always seen through my family's games. "You need a lawyer?" "Megan," she said, her voice firm, over coffee at our usual diner. "Don't let them drag you down." I hired a real estate attorney and a financial advisor that afternoon, handing over every document tied to that $35,000 co-signed debt. I also pulled my credit report, expecting a hit from missed payments. What I found was worse. My name was tied to 3 other loans I'd never heard of, including a second mortgage on my parents' house and a down payment for Nicholas's suburban McMansion. The advisor laid it out: my parents had used my credit as a piggy bank for years, funneling money to Nicholas's law school and his house, while I hustled to pay my own way. My credit score had tanked nearly 100 points, threatening my ability to refinance my condo or secure business loans. The bank could come after me for all of it, not just the $35,000. I sat at my kitchen table, papers spread out, Daniel rubbing my shoulders. "They didn't just betray you at the wedding," he said. "This was calculated." I called Mom a week later, armed with the evidence. "I know about the other loans," I said, my voice cold. "The second mortgage, Nicholas's house, all on my credit." She sputtered. "Family helps family, Megan. You're blowing this out of proportion." I cut her off. "I'm not your ATM. Pay your own bills." Dad jumped in, his tone sharp. "You're being petty over one missed wedding." I laughed, bitter. "One you've missed my whole life, and you used my college fund for Nicholas." Silence stretched, then Mom's voice turned icy. "If you don't help, we'll disown you." I didn't flinch. "You already did on my wedding day." The fallout came fast. Aunt Danielle, who'd retracted her like on Mom's group chat message, called to apologize. "I didn't know the whole story," she said, her voice soft. "I'm proud of you for standing up." Uncle Brandon texted, offering to talk if I needed it. But others weren't so kind. My cousin Lisa sent a long message accusing me of abandoning family in their time of need. Nicholas called, his voice dripping with condescension. "You're jealous of my success, always have been. Fix this, Megan." I told him to check the bank records himself. "See when they stopped paying and started spending on your house," I said. He hung up, no comeback. Lauren sat with me that night, helping me draft a letter to the bank. I proposed removing my name from the loans in exchange for a lien on any future inheritance, a long shot, but worth trying. The lawyer pushed it through, citing my clean financial history outside their mess. My parents would face the debts alone. I blocked their numbers, done with their excuses. The weight of their lies didn't vanish, but standing my ground felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Blocking their numbers was just the start of my freedom. With my lawyer's help, I finalized the deal with the bank within weeks. They agreed to remove my name from the $35,000 loan and the other unauthorized debts in exchange for a lien on any future inheritance from my parents. It was a clean break. My credit took a hit, but my solid business history softened the blow. A credit repair specialist mapped out a plan to rebuild my score within a year. I walked away, no longer tethered to their financial mess. My parents weren't so lucky. Without my bailout, the bank foreclosed on their investment property by early 2025, selling it at a loss that didn't cover the loan balance. Their credit scores cratered, locking them out of refinancing their suburban home. By mid-2026, they downsized to a modest condo near Nicholas's place, a far cry from their manicured estate. Mom cut her hours at the university, citing stress, but I heard from Uncle Brandon it was to dodge questions about their finances. Their country club friends stopped calling. Turns out their perfect family image didn't survive the gossip of a foreclosure. Nicholas faced his own fallout. My parents, stretched thin, could no longer bankroll his kids' private school tuition or his law firm's expansion. He took on extra cases, working late to cover the gap, his polished life fraying at the edges. Aunt Danielle and Uncle Brandon pulled back from family gatherings, tired of Mom's excuses. Even my cousin Lisa, who'd called me selfish, texted an apology after hearing about the loans tied to my name. "I didn't know they used you like that," she wrote. The truth had cracked their facade wide open. I poured my energy into my writing agency, hiring a third associate to handle the flood of new clients after a feature in a major literary magazine. Daniel got a promotion leading a tech startup's coding team, and we renovated our condo into a warm space that felt like us. Weekend trips to Michigan's lake shores and a planned summer in Europe became our escape, no approval needed. Lauren My Rock hosted game nights with our tight-knit circle, a chosen family who celebrated every win without strings. Our home buzzed with laughter, not judgment. A year after the confrontation, Nicholas called from an unknown number. "Megan, can we talk?" He said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard. "I miss having a sister." I paused, remembering the years of his silence, his likes on Mom's cruel message. "I only help family now." I said, my tone even. "You made your choice when you picked a yacht over my wedding." I ended the call and blocked him, no regret lingering. Cutting them off wasn't vengeance, it was clarity. I'd spent decades chasing their validation only to learn my worth didn't need their stamp. My life now is built on my terms. My agency thrives. My marriage grows stronger, and my chosen family lifts me up without conditions. Their downfall wasn't my goal, but their choices carved their path for closure. Strained finances and a fractured social circle were consequences they couldn't dodge. If this story hits home, share how you've set boundaries with those who undervalued you. Your worth isn't up for debate, and sometimes the strongest family is the one you create.